Can I have that?
Can I have that?
Yeah, put your body on me. I wanna tap that. Yeah,
Tap, tap.
say you. Can I touch that? Ooh, put that booty on me. Give me a lap dance.
Let's go.
Yeah, but I know many people they wanna toast you.
Guys, welcome back to my channel. So it's been a while and I've just been trying to settle myself. I've moved back to Birmingham because of the easing of lockdown and everything allowed me to move back to Birmingham. Shout out to my real G, Catherine. She actually dropped me and Bola back to Birmingham. This video is just going to be me just talking and expressing how I feel about the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And yeah, so I actually made a video about 2 weeks ago that I was gonna post when I was down in London, but I got really emotional about it and I just decided, nah, I don't want to post it anymore. Like, it's too early for you lot to be seeing me crying. And then I went through a phase where I was just like, what am I gonna say? Like, it's all been said already, kind of, but I still just decided to give my own 2 cents and express how I feel about it and how I've taken it and how it's affected me and my perspective on everything that's going on, even now to the protests and everything, as a Black person, as a Black woman, and as a Black mother raising Black kids. So yeah, so that's kind of basically what my opinion is going to be about. I spoke to a few friends of mine to gauge their ideas on it as well, because you know, sometimes you have to think, the way I think about this, like, is it a bit tapped? Like, anybody else thinking the same thing I'm thinking, you know? And it was really interesting because I had different intakes of it, I had different angles of it. And as a Christian as well, in terms of like the protests and everything, I was in two minds about it. Should we be protesting like that? Is that right? Is that in accordance with my religion? What do other religions think? Religions think about it as well. And yeah, so that's basically what it's going to be about. I'm going to make this as short as possible. But yeah, so let's talk about it. So obviously, one of the things that I struggled a lot with in terms of the movement and how it's escalated in the last month or so is how much I didn't realize I lacked in terms of education, of like educating myself about my own culture. Like, I thought I was clued up, and then the events that's been happening has just made me realize how much there is to actually learn and unlearn about history, about who I am, about where I came from, about what my people have suffered. And I'm just like, dang, girl, you part of the problem, kind of, because I was just like, I'm not as educated about this as I thought I was. I'm not as invested into this as much as I thought I was. Like, obviously, yes, when things like this happen, I get angry, I get outraged, I'm fuming, I'm hurt. But what do I actually do? Like, yes, I tweet, I get angry, I sign petitions, and then I kind of just hope for the better. And that's kind of like been the cycle that a lot of us have been doing. And it's really painful because you grew up learning about slavery, but you didn't actually grow up learning what you need to learn as a Black person. You didn't actually learn, you learn history from the winner's point of view, don't you? When you talk about wars and all of this, it's all about the winner. It's all about, you know, their point of view and how they overcome it and this, that, and the other. So when we learn about slavery, we don't actually learn about the deepness of it. We learn just the surface level. We learn basic ones, but you don't learn your deep rooted things that actually happen, the actual suffering that people went through over things that they could not change. Like, deep it, the color of my skin is why you hate me. Is that not a sickness, please? Is that not a sickness? Pardon? So one of the things I've been trying to do is to just educate myself a lot more, because as a Black woman, like I said, raising Black kids and trying to build a strong Black home, I need to be aware of this. My kids need to be aware of it. Not from a standpoint of hatred, or from a standpoint of, you know, I want to be angry towards the whites and I'm anti-white, but you need to know your history. You need to know where you're coming from. You need to know what your people went through, and you need to understand And I think that's one of the main things I'm educating. That's one of the main reasons I want to educate myself, and not just on the negatives, but also the positive. That the inventors we have, the amazing work that Black people have done, the phenomenal things that we've accomplished as people. So yeah, so that's one of the things I want to do, and educate myself and educate my kids, so that when they go, and hopefully by the time Bola grows up and is going into uni, the curriculum is changed and is more accepting of teaching Black excellence and teaching Black grace and Black beauty. And I think that's so important. I think as much as people are out there protesting and fighting and all of that thing, we need to educate ourselves, because we are raising Black kings and queens. We are raising Black children. We are trying to become better. We are trying to stand stronger as one community. So we have to educate ourselves. We can't allow room for ignorance. And when we talk about Black Lives Matter, all Black lives matter, regardless of whether I agree with your religion or your lifestyle or whatever it may be. Black lives matter, because that's the only way here that we're going to end all of this nonsense. That's the only way we're going to end all this hatred and this hostility towards our kind. That's the only way it's going to happen. You can't decide that you're going to fight for George Floyd, but you're not going to fight for somebody else because maybe you later on find out that they're gay or lesbian or they're transgender or they're Muslim or Hindu or this or that. It doesn't work like that. Because we have one, regardless of all of that, there's one common hatred. There's one common thing that's oppressing us. There's one common battle that we're facing, and that's racism. And irrespective of your religion, I would like to believe that one of the main things that all, if not most, if not all religions share, is that sense of love. Is loving one another, is fighting for one another, fighting for what is right. So it doesn't matter whether I agree with your lifestyle or I don't agree with your lifestyle. The fact that what's happening to you is wrong means that I should stick up for you and I should fight for you. Who am I to judge? Who are you to judge? That's the point that we're trying to get, because people are judging us based off the color of our skin. So if we want to show people that, no, that's not right, we need to start within ourselves. We need to stop judging other people based on things that really and truly doesn't really concern you. What concerns us is what we all have in common, which is the color of our skin. And people of our kind are getting oppressed, are getting murdered, are getting discriminated left, right, and center all over the world, not just in America, even in our own homes, even in our own homeland. We're fighting against each other, we're harming each other, we're doing all of these things, and yet we expect people to treat us better. We can't even treat ourselves better. We can't even fix what's broken within our own community. We've allowed oppression to enter into our brains so much that we've found this self-hatred for our own people, from tweeting about, oh yeah, this person is too bleak, or this person is too dark, or no, I can't, this. Come on. It needs to end. That's when we can then really and truly say, yeah, we're really making a difference out here. Until we do that, the bottom line is we can protest as many times as you want. You can fight as many times as you want. You can go on BBC News and all of these places and say, we need to make a change. You need to change as much as you want. But until we're able to love ourselves and stand up for ourselves as a whole, as a community, we're part of the problem that we're trying to solve. Make it make sense. How? How does that? It doesn't make any sense. The last thing I would want is for my child, for Bola, to be walking down the street and be getting insulted or being bullied or facing the hatred, or me worrying that my child's not going to come back home because of the color of her skin. So if I don't want that for my child, how can I ever imagine that happening to somebody else's child and sit silently and not try to make a change? So at the end of the day, I just don't get it. Me and my group of friends, one of my group of friends, we were talking, and we were actually trying to dissect racism and think that and we literally came down to it and said, well, I'm not being funny. It has to be possession. You must be possessed. This must be spiritual, because how can you actually hate somebody because of the color of their skin? Like, you haven't judged me. You don't know my character. You don't know whether I'm a liar, or whether I'm educated, or whether I'm this and that. You've just seen the color of my skin, and you've made assumptions of me. You've judged me. You're ready to hate on me and to kill me and to deem that you think that your life is more worthy than my life because you came out lighter. How is that not? That's a mental problem? Like, I don't care. That has to be a mental problem, because it literally doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What else is there to it? But yeah, so I think that's the main point. That's the main thing that I've been seeing, is that we just need to love ourselves a lot more. And when we stand together in unity, that's when we can really and truly make a difference and change the world. Like, you can't scream Black Lives Matter and only fight for men. You can't scream Black Lives Matter and only fight for women that you think are good looking and forget the rest and think, oh yeah, well actually, but you're this, you're that, you know, and not have the same vim. We have to have the same vim for every single one of us. Anytime there is some form of injustice, especially when it has to do with our race, because this is what we're fighting, then we have to stand. We have to have the same vim. The same vim that we're having for George is the same vim that we need to have for Toyin. It's the same vim we need to have for every single person out there that's suffering injustice, that has died because of the color of their skin. That's the main thing. That's the main thing. If that's one thing I've learned from this uproar of Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter isn't a trend. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It's not a trend that you just post here and there and you think, yeah, okay, I've done my posting. Let me just sit back and chill, and I've done my part. No, it's a lifestyle. You have to carry yourself in that. You have to embody what it means. Black Lives Matter, you have to embody, you have to surround yourself and understand that when I'm fighting for Black lives here, I'm not just fighting for my friends' Black lives, I'm fighting for all Black lives. Because at the end of the day, until everyone that's screaming, and all these people that are screaming all lives matter, it's true what most of us, yes, that's true. But at the end of the day, like people have said over and over again, all lives can't matter until Black lives matter. All lives can't matter until you stop inequality, until you stop racism, until you stop discrimination. Then all lives can't matter. That's it, point blank, period. Regardless of your religion, of your skin tone, of your preference, blah blah blah, we for the flair. None of that changes the fact that until we can learn to stop this hatred that we have and this judgmental nonsense, all lives can't matter. Point blank, period. And it's okay for you to have had a view about something before and then educate yourself and change. Because once upon a time, racism was the thing. Everyone thought it was okay to be racist, except for us Black people that were suffering it. Everyone thought it was. So me and this cancel culture thing that everyone's doing, that, you know, you bring up old tweets or old this or that and everyone's getting cancelled left, right and centre. Mate, that's not the way to end this thing. They were racist then, they were ignorant then, they were whatever then. They need to educate themselves, apologise and mean it, and then we move forward. That's the way to win this thing. We're not going to make ourselves any better by cancelling them and saying, oh, you're cancelled, you're this, you're that, you're that, you're that. No, call them out for what it is. Let them know that we're not taking it anymore. We're calling you out on it. Educate yourself and do better. That's the way forward, personally speaking. And then just to quickly touch on the whole protesting. So, yeah, let me just quickly, because a lot of people might disagree with me, but I was in two minds about this, and I spoke to a lot of my friends, and I spoke to friends in terms of like Christians, Muslims, agnostics, whatever, different types of beliefs or non-beliefs, should we say, as well. And I struggled a lot because I thought to myself, as a Christian, should I be condemning this type of protest? Like, not your peaceful protest, like, you know, the proper riots like that we've been seeing across. Like, I feel like I shouldn't be supporting this. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, my religion teaches love and peace, but it also teaches about right and wrong, and we need to fight for what's right and what's wrong. And I was in two minds because on one hand, I was just like, yeah, what would Jesus do? I'm not sure Jesus will be out here looting and collecting Versace and breaking all of these things and violence and all that kind of stuff there. But then again, I was at the same time, I was just like, but people are tired, people are in pain, they're suffering, they're angry, they have tried to be peaceful and to be diplomatic about things and to be political about things. And where has it actually gotten us? And it seems like the only time we get heard is when there's an uproar, is when there is chaos and when there is rioting and there is violence. And so a part of me was like, I mean, if it's gonna do the job, what can I say? You know what I mean? And to a point, I did feel like that. And as a Christian, don't feel like you have to be perfect and holy about your feelings. Like you're human beings, you're a human being, you're learning. You're allowed to feel angry because we're flesh. That's the point. We're flesh. And I just came, for me personally, after gathering information from all my friends, and one of the things that I found that we all had in common was about this fight, the fact that we need to fight for injustice. For those that can't fight for themselves, we need to. But that word fight comes in many different forms. So while some people believe, and to an extent I do agree, and I do believe that, you know what, this uproar needs to happen, because until it happens, and when it didn't happen, it was all being swept under the carpet and nobody was really doing anything. It was when people were really and truly saying, no, we're not taking this. That's when we started to see a bit of change and a bit of, change. So what I've come to is I don't agree with the violence. Like, I wouldn't go out there and protest in a violent manner. I believe in protesting 100%. Violent protesting, not so much. But who am I to tell you how to express your anger? I can't. I can only talk about me. So I think in a weird way, they all kind of work hand in hand together. The violence had to happen and the uproar had to happen to get it out there, I guess. Because if you were just, like, for example, the peaceful protest that's been going on in America consecutively, they've died down, it stopped, and because it's just a peaceful protest, it's not going on the news anymore. So a lot of people think, oh yeah, that's it, it's died down. But when there's uproar and there's violence and there's rage, that's when they want to talk about it. That's when it's at the forefront. That's when it's being brought to people's attention and things like that. So I agree that to an extent it needed to happen, because it gave a platform for there to be some form of change, including the peaceful protest. Yeah, it had a negative effect on it and all that kind of jazz, but it got people talking. It got people talking about, listen, this is not okay, point blank, period. Whether you agree with it or you disagree with it, it got people talking. My point of view is, regardless of however you want to protest, whether that's peaceful or you want to go all out and say, listen, I'm burning everything. Like, who burn that down, scatter that place, regardless of what we have to do, it always comes down to, as a Christian, we have to pray. Like, we can't just expect things to just change, because we've clearly been trying one way. We've done the violence, we've done the peaceful protest, and we've done all of that. But at the end of the day, like I said to you, I kid you not, and people are probably going to disagree with me, and that's fair enough too. You're more than happy to. It's my opinion. But I really think that this thing called racism is more spiritual than we think. This thing called racism is, because it doesn't make any, it's a disease. And it's a spiritual disease, because how can you wake up, come to earth, you started off black and white, you didn't see color. Most children don't see color. We've seen many pictures. Kids don't necessarily see, oh, this person's black, I hate you. Kids play, they're innocent, they're free. And then something switches and you just decide that you're superior because of the color of your skin. I think that's a real mental problem. I think that, not even just mental, I think that's like a spiritual attack. It must be possession as far as I'm concerned. And I think we need to pray that God really heal, because there are people suffering. This is people suffering. These are actual lives, actual families that are being affected by this thing. So as much as, yes, it affects us all as black people, those that it affects personally, they're dealing with a lot, and we need to pray. We need to pray that God strengthens them, that God guides them, whether you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, a Sikh, Buddhist, whatever it is, we all need to pray. We need to pray, point blank period. We need to pray for healing. We need to pray for restoration. We need to pray that change actually happens. Actual change happens this time, and that our voice is not just in vain, that we're not just crying in vain, and people are not just dying constantly in vain. And I think that's the real fight that we need to fight. That, because you can tweet as much as you want, that's all great, but we need to have action, and we need to have prayer. Prayer and works. Prayer and works. Prayer and works. It needs to go hand in hand. You need to sign these petitions. You need to retweet and let people know what's going on out there. You need to do all of these things, but at the same time, you need to pray. You need to pray for your siblings, for your loved ones, for people that you don't know, for those that are suffering, that are dealing with it. We need to do that, and I think those are the only ways that it's gonna work. Because works without prayer, for me, what's that? Because we can't fight this thing alone, clearly, and it's shown throughout history that we can't fight this alone. We can't do it on our own. We can't do it on our own. We cannot do it on our own. And I pray, and I will keep praying, that my kids don't have to grow up in a world that hates them because of the color of their skin. You haven't gotten to know them. You don't know the level of education they have. You don't know their characteristics. You don't know if they came from a good home. But you just see them and you hate them for the color of their skin. You categorize them as one bad bunch because of other things you've experienced. If that's wrong about X, Y, and Z, why is that right with black people? If it's wrong for me to be biased about criminals that have even criminals, normal criminals that have gone to prison, that have come out, and because you have a record now, I'm now discriminating against you. If that's wrong, if it's wrong for me to say that, oh, do you know, all gays and all Muslims and all Christians and all this, why is it right to say all blacks? Why? Is that not a mental illness? Is that not a problem? Can you look yourself in the mirror and really and truly say that you are not part of the problem? We need to educate ourselves. We need to pray. We need to stand as one, because that's the only way we're going to win. But yeah, guys, I mean, that was quite intense. Not as intense as my first video, but yeah, it's really sad. So one of the things I'm going to keep doing is educating myself, so that I ensure that I'm the best person I can be. And that my kids can grow up in a strong, loving home, knowing that the color of their skin doesn't determine who they are as a person, that they are beautifully and wonderfully made in the eyes of God, and that God did not make a mistake by making them black, and that it's not a sin to be black. It's not a crime to be black. It's not wrong to be black. And I have to educate them, because the way it's going, clearly, the educational system isn't going to educate them, because it didn't educate me. It didn't educate so many people. So I have to make sure that my kids are educated, and they know who they are, and they know where they came from, and they don't look at life as though, you know, what, everyone hates me just because. You need to know where you're coming from, and you need to understand that you are better than that. And that you are not, and never will be, less because of the color of your skin. But yeah, that's it, guys. That was intense, wasn't it?